Hi, Sarah Weaver. I'm going to take you through balance exercise for an athlete. He's a male athlete, basketball player, suffered a left ankle sprain, lateral sprain. So we're going to be working on that and trying to rehab him back. The first phase is going to be the stabilization phase. It's going to be very simple. We're going to start out with just balance on one leg. We're going to do one set of each exercise for both legs. And then we would rest and we would do a second set, both legs, each exercise. So the first one would be the floor exercise. He would stand one leg. We would come up, down, up. Very slow tempo. Down, up. That's 3. You want to go down slow, come up fairly fast with a slight hold. Before we go back down, we would do 6 on that leg. Then we would switch over to the other leg, do the same thing, up, hold, down, up, hold, down, and we would do 6 on this leg. Then we would give the athlete a 10-second break before we went back to the other leg, and we did a same side arm motion. So we would be balancing on one leg, and we would be moving the arm for 6 swings before we move to the other leg, balancing 6 swings, and then we would rest about 10 seconds. Then we're going to do the leg motion. So back to the first leg there. We're going to do a leg motion where we're going to kick, trying to hold the arm still, just doing the leg. We would do 6 reps, then we would switch legs, holding still, kicking, 6 reps before we would do a 10-second rest. Finally, the last one would be the arm and leg. So we're going to do same arm, opposite leg. So we would be moving both. Of course, that stabilization leg would have no movement in it. It would be maintaining a balance. We would do 6 reps before we would switch legs and do the same. And as long as the athlete was good with that, we would progress to the next. Our next one is going to be a reach. So we would do a sagittal reach, slight bend in the leg, but we're going to hold it still. We're going to do a sagittal reach out and back for a set of 6. Then we would switch legs, do the same, out, back, out. Okay, then we would rest. Then we would go into the frontal plane movement where we would come out this way. 6 reps. Again, that stabilization leg needs to hold. There's no movement in it, while the other leg is reaching out in the frontal motion. And we would rest. Then finally we would do the transverse, where we would come down at an angle. Quick out with a hold, coming back in slow. Again, this is a slow tempo. Then we would move to the other side, and we would go 6 reps. And we would rest. Now, once we went through that whole progression, we would go back and we would do another set, doing 2 sets of each of the exercises on both legs. Now, in this phase, this is day 1. In this phase, this would be an assessment phase. So as long as the athlete was progressing, we would continue to move forward. If the athlete was having trouble at any point, we would stop and we wouldn't progress any more exercises, but we would go back to repeat the ones that we did successfully for that second set. Now, let's just say that the athlete has gone through day 1 very successfully. He's able to complete all of the exercises very well. With complete control, we would move into pass and throw. So with that, we would get a ball. And I don't have necessarily anybody to pass it to me right now, but let's pretend like this wall is another person. We would simply stand on one leg. We would give it a pass, catch, pass, catch, pass, catch. And then we would switch legs. Holding steady, just catching that ball, just a little bit of a throw. And again, that would be somebody who's catching it and passing it back. So that would be day 1, stabilization, and that last throwing exercise would only occur once the athlete was able to go through the whole thing successfully. Before he would progress to the day 2, which is slightly more challenging, We need to make sure that he can do all of those day one things appropriately. If for some reason he can't, then our day 2 would consist of just day 1 until day 1 was solid, and then we would move on to day 2. Day 2 is just slightly challenging. So once he was able to complete the stabilization phase all the way through day 1 and 2 with complete success, we would begin to move him into a strength phase. Now that stabilization phase can last anywhere between 4 to 7 weeks depending on the progression of the athlete. So let's move into the strength phase. For my strength phase, we have, usually strength is phases 3, 4, and 5. So within those strength phases, there is a progression. Sets will change, reps will change, the level of difficulty will change, as well as introducing different planes of motion, okay? But for my day 1, we're just going to assume we're in phase 2. The athlete has just come out of his stabilization phase very successfully, and now we're going to move him into a strength portion of the phase. Very simply, we're going to start out with a leg squat. So he would stand on one leg. We're going to do 2 sets of 8 on each leg. So we would go down, 1, 2, and we would go 8 reps. Once we did the 8 reps, we would immediately go to the opposite leg, and we would do 8 reps. Okay? Once we did that, we would rest now for about 20 seconds. We got a little bit more movement going, so we're going to give him a 20-second rest before we go into the single leg RDL. So for the single leg RDL, it's a hinge movement. We'll stand on one leg. We're going to touch with the opposite arm. We're going to hinge down and come back up. Down, come back up. Again, we're going to do a set of 8. Okay? Then we would move to the other leg. Do a set of 8. Making sure that he's stable on his leg and we're having absolutely no problems. We would rest for 20 seconds. Then we would move up to the step up to balance. With this, we would simply step up. At the top, we want the toe to point. We would come back down. Then we would step up. Toe would point. And you can change the level of difficulty by increasing the height of the step. But we would do 8 here. And then we would do 8 on the other leg. Again, with the toe pointing up. We would do 8 reps. Then we would rest, and we would repeat. We would go back into our squat, our RDL, and then our step up for 2 sets of that. And that would be our day 1 strength phase. Then, once the athlete has progressed through day 1 and day 2, both phases 3, 4, and 5, which are going to have all those differing variables, we would move him into a power phase. A power phase should only be done once the athlete successfully was able to do all those other stages. If at any point the athlete was struggling and having trouble, we would stop exercises, repeat, and only progress as far as he was able. We wouldn't force him back past things that he wasn't able to do because, again, we wouldn't want to re-injure that ankle. So, for day 1 power phase, we're going to assume we're in power phase 5. Okay, so we're just coming out of our strength phase. Very simply, we're going to do hop with a stabilization, sagittal, frontal, and transverse. So our hop here, we would jump, land on the opposite leg, and we would hold. Now I'm having my athlete reset himself every time. So he would jump and hold and reset. One leg, jump, hold, and reset for a rep of 8. Then he would switch legs, sagittal plane. So we're going to jump, hold, reset, jump, hold, reset. So that would be the sagittal. Then we're going to give our athlete a 30-second rest before we move into our frontal movement. For our frontal movement, we're simply going to jump to the side. So we would jump, hop to the side with a hold. Then we would return for a hold. It's hard to talk and do it. Hold. Hold. And we would do 8 on each leg there. And then for the final one, we would have him do the transverse plane where he's jumping, rotating, and holding. Then I have him resetting, jumping, rotating, and holding. Okay, very important that he holds. Then we would move to the opposite leg, jump, rotate, hold, reset, jump, rotate, hold. Okay? Very important that we concentrate on that hold in that power phase. So that is day one of my power progression. So now our athlete has gone through his entire stabilization phase successfully. He's moved into those strength phases, 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, and 4, and then finally he's progressed into his power phase. Thank you.